Behind the smoke, chrome, and Texas-sized personalities of Fast and Loud lies a world of bizarre feuds involving literal horse manure, Christmas stalking for a Lamborghini, and employees who needed outside time, like hyperactive children. From fake Firebird scandals worth hundreds of thousands to a boss who divorced and remarried the same woman twice, this Discovery Channel hit hid more drama than any engine rebuild. Fact 1. Richard Rawlings stalks a Lamborghini owner every Christmas. Most people call their family members on Christmas morning, but Richard Rawlings from Fast and Loud has a very different holiday tradition that involves repeatedly calling a complete stranger in Florida about buying his car. For the past 4 years running, Rawlings has made it his personal Christmas mission to phone the same car owner every December 25th, hoping to convince him to sell his incredibly rare 1966 to 1973 Lamborghini Miura. The Lamborghini Miura holds a special place in automotive history as the first rear mid-engine supercar ever produced. And with only 764 cars built during its entire production run, finding one for sale is like discovering buried treasure. Rawlings has had his eye on this particular Miura for years, but there's just one problem that no amount of gas monkey charm seems to solve. The owner absolutely refuses to sell it. What makes this situation even more bizarre is that Rawlings has turned his obsession into an annual ritual, timing his calls to coincide with Christmas Day, when most people are busy opening presents and spending time with loved ones. The Florida-based owner has consistently turned down every offer, but rather than giving up like most people would after the first rejection, Rawlings has doubled down on his strategy and made it a yearly event. In an interview with Entrepreneur magazine, Rawlings revealed his unwavering optimism about eventually landing the dream car, saying he believes he will end up with the Miura because he just needs to catch the owner on the right day. The Gas Monkey founder seems convinced that persistence will eventually pay off, and that somewhere between the holiday spirit and enough phone calls, the owner will finally agree to part with his prized possession. Whether this unusual Christmas tradition will ever actually work remains to be seen, but Rawlings shows no signs of breaking his 4-year streak of holiday car stalking anytime soon. Fact 2. Jesse James had horse manure dumped at Gas Monkey. When two alpha males in the custom car world clash, the results can get messy in ways you might never expect, and the feud between Richard Rawlings and Jesse James from Monster Garage proved that point in the most literal way possible. What started as typical trash talking between competing car builders eventually escalated into one of the most bizarre acts of revenge ever captured on reality television when James decided to make his feelings about Rawlings crystal clear by having an entire dump truck full of horse manure delivered and dumped right in the middle of Gas Monkey Garage's driveway. The rivalry between these two personalities had been brewing for years, with both men representing different sides of the custom car building world, and neither one backing down from a fight. Jesse James, who was already famous for his work on Monster Garage and his high-profile marriage to actress Sandra Bullock, had moved to Austin, Texas around 2010 to continue his car and motorcycle career, putting him in direct competition with Rawlings on his home turf. The tension really started heating up around 2007, when Rawlings couldn't resist making James the target of several jokes, including comments about James trying to act like a Texan despite not being a native of the state. James clearly didn't appreciate the ribbing, and instead of responding with words or social media posts like most people would do today, what makes this whole situation even more incredible is that the Fast and Loud cameras happened to be rolling when the dump truck arrived, capturing the entire manure delivery for broadcast to millions of viewers. The producers apparently didn't realize the symbolic implications of filming and airing literal piles of waste, but they went ahead and included the footage anyway, giving fans a front-row seat to one of the most unusual celebrity feuds in reality television history. Fact 3. Tom Smith needed outside time, like a child. Working in a high-pressure garage environment with cameras rolling can bring out the worst in people, but one Fast and Loud cast member had such unusual behavior that his co-workers developed special rules to manage him like he was a misbehaving child, rather than a grown adult. Tom Smith, one of the more colorful mechanics at Gas Monkey Garage, had such hyperactive tendencies that the staff established specific protocols for dealing with his disruptive behavior whenever he got too worked up during filming. Christy Brimberry, the office manager who kept Gas Monkey Garage running smoothly behind the scenes, revealed the extent of Smith's behavioral issues in an intro video where she answered fan questions about working with the various garage employees. When one curious viewer asked how she managed to cope with Tom's antics on a daily basis, her response painted a picture of dealing with someone who seemed incapable of controlling his indoor voice or energy levels. According to Brimberry, the biggest challenge with Smith was that he constantly needed to be reminded that he was working inside a building, because if no one told him to keep it down, he would inevitably become really loud and obnoxious, behaving exactly like what she described as a really bad, hyperactive kid. The situation got so predictable that the Gas Monkey staff developed a simple two-option system for handling Smith whenever his behavior became too disruptive for everyone else to handle. Their solution was remarkably straightforward and treated Smith exactly like a parent would handle an overstimulated child who couldn't sit still during quiet time. The staff would give him an ultimatum that left no room for negotiation. He could either shut up and calm down immediately, or he would have to go outside until he could control himself properly. This bizarre management technique apparently became such a regular occurrence that Brimberry felt comfortable sharing it publicly, suggesting that Smith's need for outdoor cooling-off periods was a well-known part of daily life at the garage. Fact 4. Richard divorced and remarried the same woman twice. Most people who get divorced from someone tend to stay divorced, but Richard Rawlings took a completely different approach to his failed marriage by doing something that sounds more like a romantic comedy plot than real life. Rawlings actually married the same woman twice and divorced her twice, creating one of the most unusual love stories in reality television history that spanned over 2 decades and involved multiple wedding ceremonies in different countries. The saga began in 1999 when Rawlings married Suzanne Marie Mergely in Las Vegas, Nevada, starting what seemed like a typical celebrity marriage that would last for about 10 years. However, the pressures of building Gas Monkey Garage and getting Fast and Loud off the ground created serious strain in their relationship, with Rawlings constantly traveling and working long hours, while Suzanne struggled to deal with his demanding schedule and the chaos that came with his growing fame. By 2009, just as Fast and Loud was entering its promotional stages and demanding even more of Rawlings' time and attention, the couple decided to officially end their marriage after a decade together. Rawlings later admitted that the divorce happened because Suzanne was having a hard time dealing with all the Gas Monkey and Fast and Loud activities that were consuming his life, and the constant travel and presence of other women at car shows made the situation even more difficult for her to handle. But this is where the story gets really strange, because despite being divorced for 6 years, Rawlings and Suzanne apparently never completely lost touch with each other and were spotted together at various events starting in early 2013. Then in January 2015, during what was supposed to be a casual trip to Cabo, Mexico to surprise a friend on his birthday, Rawlings and Suzanne made the spontaneous decision to get married again. The second marriage lasted until 2019 when they divorced for the final time. Fact 5. 2 mechanics were fired over a Rolls-Royce photo. Sometimes a simple act of kindness can lead to unexpected consequences, and 2 popular Gas Monkey Garage mechanics learned this lesson the hard way when their attempt to help a fan take a photo resulted in both of them losing their jobs on the exact same day. Tom Smith and Jordan Butler, who were well-liked cast members on Fast and Loud, found themselves suddenly unemployed after what seemed like a minor incident involving Richard Rawlings' expensive luxury car and a misunderstanding with management. The incident began when a fan visited Gas Monkey Garage and asked to take a photo standing next to Rawlings' prized Rolls-Royce, which was parked at the shop during filming. Smith and Butler, being friendly guys who understood that fan interactions were part of the reality television experience, agreed to let the visitor pose near the expensive vehicle for what should have been a harmless photo opportunity that would make someone's day a little brighter. However, the situation quickly escalated when the manager who was on duty that day noticed what was happening and became upset about the fan being so close to Rawlings' personal luxury car. According to Smith's later account of the events, the manager loudly demanded that they get the fan away from the Rolls-Royce immediately, using aggressive language that the mechanics felt was completely unnecessary given the circumstances. What made the situation even more tragic was that the fan who wanted the photo was someone dealing with cystic fibrosis, a serious medical condition that affects the lungs and digestive system, making this a particularly meaningful moment for someone who might not have many opportunities to visit famous car shops. When Smith heard the manager yelling aggressively at them to move the fan away from the car, he responded by telling the manager to chill out and calm down, using some colorful language that apparently crossed a line with management. Within just a few hours of this confrontation, both Smith and Butler were officially terminated from Gas Monkey Garage, ending their time on Fast and Loud over what started as a simple request for a photograph. Fact 6. The show took 8 years of harassment to get made. Most television shows get picked up after a few meetings and some back-and-forth negotiations, but Richard Rawlings turned getting Fast and Loud on the air into an 8-year marathon of persistence that apparently tested the patience of Discovery Channel executives to their absolute breaking point. What started as a normal pitch process eventually became such an aggressive campaign that network officials may have finally greenlit the show just to make Rawlings stop bothering them with constant calls, emails, and meeting requests. Rawlings had always dreamed of having his own television show centered around Gas Monkey Garage, and he wasn't the type of person to take no for an answer when it came to pursuing his goals. From the moment he decided that reality television was the perfect way to showcase his car-flipping business, he began what can only be described as a relentless assault on Discovery Channel's decision-makers, pitching the same basic concept year after year with unwavering determination. The persistence campaign began in the early 2000s and continued without interruption until 2012, when Discovery finally agreed to produce the show that would become one of their biggest hits. During those 8 long years, Rawlings refined his pitch, built up Gas Monkey Garage's reputation, and most importantly, never stopped calling the network to remind them that he was still interested in making television magic happen. Craig Kaufman, who served as Discovery Channel's senior vice president at the time, later admitted that Rawlings was probably the most aggressive entrepreneur he had ever worked with in his entire career. The executive's candid assessment of the situation suggested that the network's decision to finally move forward with Fast and Loud might have been motivated as much by exhaustion as it was by genuine excitement about the show's potential. Kaufman's honest reflection on the 8-year ordeal revealed that Discovery Channel executives had grown so tired of Rawlings' constant pitching that they may have given him the show simply to end the harassment and get him to stop filling their voicemail boxes with enthusiastic messages about Gas Monkey Garage. Fact 7. Aaron Kaufman sometimes slept inside the cars. The first season of Fast and Loud pushed its cast to physical and mental limits that went far beyond what most people would consider reasonable working conditions, and lead mechanic Aaron Kaufman bore the brunt of this extreme schedule in ways that were both heartbreaking and completely visible to television audiences. During those initial 24 weeks of filming, Kaufman and his small team were tasked with building 12 complete cars, which meant working an absolutely brutal schedule of 110 hours per week that left little time for basic human needs like sleep and proper hygiene. The workload was so intense that Kaufman, along with his friend Casey Mathieu and a few other dedicated mechanics, essentially lived at Gas Monkey Garage around the clock, trying to meet impossible deadlines, while cameras captured their every move for what would become one of Discovery Channel's biggest reality television hits. The commute from their homes in Fort Worth to the garage in Northwest Dallas added another 14 hours to their weekly schedule, making it nearly impossible to maintain any kind of normal life outside of work. The exhaustion became so severe that Kaufman would literally fall asleep inside the very cars he was supposed to be working on, curled up in driver's seats or stretched out in back seats, while production continued around him. These moments of complete physical collapse happened so frequently that the camera crews learned to expect them and simply kept filming, capturing footage of a man who had pushed himself past the point of human endurance in pursuit of building the perfect custom vehicle. When it came to basic hygiene, Kaufman's situation was equally desperate, as he resorted to showering with a garden hose behind the garage building because he didn't have time to drive home for a proper shower. During interviews filmed for the show's on-the-fly segments, Kaufman appeared so exhausted that he could barely speak coherently, his beard and clothes covered in grease and sweat from days of continuous work, without adequate rest or recovery time. Fact 8. The fake Firebird, Holy Grail, scandal worth these and 25,000. Reality television shows often blur the line between authentic discoveries and manufactured drama, but Fast and Loud crossed into outright deception during Season 4, when they presented what appeared to be one of the greatest automotive finds in history, only to have eagle-eyed fans expose the entire story as completely fabricated. The episode featured Richard Rawlings dramatically leading his crew to a barn where he claimed to have made an incredible discovery that would change everything for Gas Monkey Garage and the classic car world. According to the show's narrative, Rawlings had stumbled upon two extremely rare Pontiac Firebirds that were supposedly prototype or pilot cars used by General Motors as proof-of-concept vehicles to help decide whether the Firebird model should go into full production. The producers presented these cars as the holy grail of barn finds, claiming they had been neglected and forgotten in this storage building for decades, just waiting for someone with Rawlings' expertise to recognize their incredible historical significance. The show built massive excitement around these vehicles by stating that each Firebird was worth an astounding $325,000, and that once restored by the Gas Monkey team, their value would climb even higher due to their supposed status as one-of-a-kind prototype vehicles. Rawlings and his crew spent considerable time and money working on these cars, with the cameras capturing every moment of the restoration process as if they were handling priceless pieces of automotive history. However, dedicated Fast and Loud fans who knew their classic cars immediately became suspicious of the claims being made about these particular Firebirds, and they began investigating the vehicle's true background using online resources and automotive databases. Their research quickly revealed that these cars were not prototypes at all, but simply the first two regular production Firebirds that had rolled off the assembly line, making them historically interesting but nowhere near as valuable as the show claimed. Even more damaging to the show's credibility was the discovery that both cars had actually sold on eBay just 1 year earlier for approximately $30,000 each, completely destroying the narrative about them being forgotten barn finds. Fact 9. Christy Brimberry got hired through her hairdresser husband. Sometimes the most important connections in your career come from the most unexpected places, and Christy Brimberry's path to becoming the beloved office manager of Gas Monkey Garage proves that persistence from a spouse. Brimberry, who became known to Fast and Loud fans as the no-nonsense woman who kept Richard Rawlings and his crew organized while referring to herself as the garage's zookeeper, actually landed her position through what can only be described as spousal harassment of her future boss. The unusual hiring story began because Brimberry's husband worked as Richard Rawlings' personal hairstylist, giving him regular access to the Gas Monkey founder during appointments, and creating the perfect opportunity for him to advocate for his wife's employment. Rather than simply mentioning once that his wife might be interested in working at the garage, Brimberry's husband took a much more aggressive approach that involved repeatedly bringing up the subject every time Rawlings came in for a haircut. According to Brimberry herself, her husband became so persistent about getting her a job interview that he essentially wore down Rawlings' resistance through sheer repetition, constantly talking about how perfect his wife would be for managing the administrative side of Gas Monkey Garage. The hairstylist apparently refused to let the topic drop during their regular appointments, turning what should have been relaxing grooming sessions into ongoing job placement negotiations. Eventually, Rawlings agreed to give Brimberry an audition not because he was particularly excited about her qualifications or because he desperately needed an office manager, but simply because he wanted her husband to stop bringing up the subject during every single haircut appointment. What started as an attempt to end the constant pestering turned into one of the best hiring decisions Rawlings ever made, as Brimberry quickly proved herself invaluable to Gas Monkey's operations and became a fan-favorite character who could hold her own against the garage's most difficult personalities while keeping the business running smoothly behind the scene. Fact 10. Aaron Kaufman left because he wanted bigger cars. When Aaron Kaufman announced his departure from Fast and Loud in 2017, the show presented it as a dramatic moment about being tired of tight deadlines and wanting more creative freedom, but the real story behind his exit was much more specific and reveals the fundamental tension between television production needs and an artist's creative vision. While fans watched Kaufman tell Richard Rawlings about needing to go his own way and escape the pressure cooker environment of Gas Monkey Garage, the actual reason for his departure had everything to do with the size and scope of the projects he was allowed to work on. In a candid interview with Art of Gears, Kaufman revealed that his frustration stemmed from a basic incompatibility between what he wanted to build as a master fabricator and what television producers needed for the show to work effectively. According to Kaufman, he had reached a point in his career where he wanted to tackle massive, complex builds that would showcase his true skills and push the boundaries of what was possible in custom car fabrication. But the reality of television production meant that Fast and Loud needed him to work on much smaller, simpler projects that could be completed within the show's filming schedule. The breaking point came during the Pantera build, which Kaufman later described as his tipping point because it represented exactly the kind of limited, television-friendly project that left him feeling creatively stifled and professionally unfulfilled. He explained that the Pantera represented the bottom end of the type of cars he wanted to build, meaning that even this project was smaller and less challenging than what he truly hoped to accomplish as a craftsman and designer. Kaufman's honest assessment of the situation was that he wanted to build cars that were much bigger and more ambitious than what the show could accommodate, while television production needed cars that were much smaller and more manageable than what would satisfy his artistic vision. This fundamental mismatch between his creative goals and the show's practical limitations made his departure inevitable, despite the financial success and fame that Fast and Loud had brought him. Fact 11. Richard earns $50,000 per episode, despite money worries. One of the most convincing aspects of Fast and Loud's drama involves Richard Rawlings constantly stressing about money, worrying whether car deals will be profitable, and acting like every project could make or break Gas Monkey Garage financially. But the reality behind the cameras tells a completely different story about his actual financial situation. While viewers watch Rawlings negotiate desperately with car sellers and fret about whether he can afford expensive parts or whether a build will turn a profit, the truth is that he's earning a substantial guaranteed income that makes these televised money concerns seem rather theatrical. According to industry reports, Rawlings receives $50,000 per episode directly from Discovery Channel for his role as the star and producer of Fast and Loud, which means that regardless of whether any individual car project makes money or loses money, he's already earning a significant paycheck just for filming the show. When you multiply that per-episode fee by the hundreds of episodes that Fast and Loud produced over its 8-year run, it becomes clear that the television income alone would be enough to support most people's entire lifestyle without needing to flip a single car. Beyond his television earnings, celebrity net worth websites estimate that Rawlings has accumulated approximately $15 million in total wealth through his various business ventures, including Gas Monkey Garage, his restaurants, energy drink partnerships, and merchandise sales. This substantial net worth suggests that the financial struggles portrayed on the show are more about creating dramatic tension for television audiences than reflecting any real concern about paying bills or keeping the business afloat. The contrast between his on-screen financial anxiety and his actual wealth becomes even more striking when you consider that Rawlings has successfully built an entire empire around the Gas Monkey brand, with multiple revenue streams that extend far beyond the garage itself. His ability to maintain this level of financial success while simultaneously convincing viewers that every car deal is a make-or-break moment demonstrates just how effective reality television can be at creating compelling drama from situations that aren't nearly as desperate as they appear. Fact 12. The Gas Monkey name advertises to air traffic. Most business owners are content to advertise their companies through traditional methods like billboards, radio commercials, and online marketing. But Richard Rawlings took his promotional strategy to literally new heights by targeting potential customers who happened to be flying thousands of feet above his garage in commercial aircraft. In what might be one of the most unusual marketing decisions in reality television history, Rawlings made the deliberate choice to paint the Gas Monkey name in massive letters across the roof of his Dallas building, creating an advertisement that can only be seen by people looking down from airplane windows. This aerial marketing approach reveals just how obsessed Rawlings is with promoting his brand through every possible channel, even ones that most entrepreneurs would never think to consider when developing their advertising strategies. The fact that he invested time, money, and effort into creating a rooftop advertisement shows that his marketing mindset extends far beyond the typical boundaries of television, social media, and print advertising that most businesses rely on to reach their target audiences. Dallas is home to one of the busiest airport systems in the United States, with Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport and Dallas Love Field, handling millions of passengers every year who fly in and out of the metropolitan area on a regular basis. This means that Rawlings' rooftop advertisement has the potential to be seen by an enormous number of travelers who might be looking out their windows during takeoff and landing, giving Gas Monkey Garage exposure to visitors from all over the world who might never have heard of the company otherwise. The rooftop advertising strategy also demonstrates Rawlings' understanding that building a successful brand requires thinking creatively about how to reach people in unexpected ways and places. While most business owners focus their marketing efforts on reaching customers who are actively looking for their products or services, Rawlings recognized that sometimes the best advertising opportunities come from surprising people who aren't expecting to encounter your brand while they're 30,000 feet in the air traveling to completely unrelated destinations. Fact 13. They built a race car that barely worked. When the popular YouTube channel Roadkill challenged Gas Monkey Garage to an 8-mile drag race, it seemed like the perfect opportunity for Richard Rawlings and his crew to showcase their skills by building a superior racing machine that would easily defeat their internet rivals. The Gas Monkey team responded by creating a heavily modified Dodge Dart that they nicknamed the Shark Cat. But what viewers saw on television was a heavily edited version of what turned out to be one of the most problematic builds in Fast and Loud history. While the show portrayed some mechanical difficulties and last-minute fixes that added drama to the racing episodes, the reality behind the cameras was far more chaotic and technically challenging than Discovery Channel was willing to admit to their audience. The Shark Cat experienced such severe mechanical problems that the Gas Monkey crew had to completely rebuild major components multiple times just to get the car running well enough to participate in the drag race challenge. The transmission issues were so severe that the team actually went through 2 complete transmission units before they could find a setup that would handle the massive horsepower they were trying to push through the drivetrain. Even worse, the standard torque converters that would normally be used in this type of racing application simply couldn't cope with the power and torque demands, forcing the mechanics to design and build custom torque converters completely from scratch, using specialized parts and engineering calculations. Perhaps the most technically complex problem involved the car's computer systems, which had been designed to work with a complete factory setup that included emissions controls, safety systems, and various sensors that the Gas Monkey team had removed to create their racing machine. The computer was so confused by all the missing components that it refused to run the engine properly, requiring the team to completely recode the entire system and trick it into thinking all the removed parts were still connected and functioning normally. Despite these massive behind-the-scenes struggles, the Sharkcat did eventually manage to win the drag race against Roadkill, though it was later sold at a Barrett-Jackson auction. Fact 14. Richard's original business idea saved him from bankruptcy. Before Richard Rawlings became famous for flipping cars and building the Gas Monkey empire, he was actually struggling to keep a completely different business afloat and was living paycheck to paycheck while watching his company slowly collapse around him. In 1999, Rawlings and a business partner had taken out a $100,000 loan to start a printing company called Lincoln Press, which initially did well but eventually ran into serious financial trouble due to management conflicts and the economic challenges of the early 2000s. By 2004, Lincoln Press was on the verge of complete failure, with Rawlings barely able to make ends meet and facing the very real possibility of losing everything he had worked to build over the previous 5 years. The printing business had become so financially unstable that Rawlings was essentially living from one paycheck to the next, with no clear path forward and mounting debts that threatened to destroy his entrepreneurial dreams before they could really take off. Faced with this desperate situation, Rawlings came up with what seemed like either a brilliant marketing strategy or a completely insane gamble that could have made his financial problems even worse if it had backfired. He decided to offer a brand new Lamborghini Gallardo as an incentive to the first client, who agreed to spend $1 million with Lincoln Press, essentially betting the future of his company on a single high-stakes promotional campaign. This audacious marketing move turned out to be exactly what Lincoln Press needed to survive its financial crisis, as the Lamborghini incentive attracted enough big-spending clients to generate several $1 million in new business that kept the company operating and provided Rawlings with the capital he needed to pursue his next venture. While the Lamborghini promotion didn't ultimately save Lincoln Press from its long-term problems, it did provide Rawlings with enough money to start Gas Monkey Garage and begin the journey that would eventually make him a millionaire reality television star, with a multi-million-dollar empire built around custom cars and entertainment. Fact 15. The show films year-round with live streams. Most television shows operate on traditional production schedules where filming happens during specific seasons with clear start and stop dates. But Fast and Loud broke away from this conventional approach by filming continuously throughout the entire year to ensure they always had enough content to meet Discovery Channel's demanding episode requirements. This constant filming schedule meant that cameras were essentially always rolling at Gas Monkey Garage, capturing every build, every argument, and every moment of garage life as it happened naturally rather than during predetermined shooting periods. The year-round filming approach was necessary because car restoration projects don't follow the neat timelines that work well for scripted television shows, and Richard Rawlings understood that the best drama and most authentic moments would happen spontaneously when people weren't specifically preparing to be on camera. By maintaining a continuous filming presence, the production team could capture genuine reactions to unexpected problems, real frustrations when deadlines got tight, and authentic celebrations when difficult builds finally came together successfully. What makes Fast and Loud's production model even more unusual is that they extended this constant documentation beyond traditional television by offering fans the ability to watch live streams of the actual Gas Monkey Garage workshop through their official website. This live streaming feature gave dedicated viewers unprecedented access to see what was really happening at the garage between episodes, allowing them to observe the day-to-day operations, ongoing projects, and behind-the-scenes activities that never made it into the edited television broadcasts. The combination of year-round filming and live streaming created a level of transparency and fan engagement that was virtually unheard of in reality television, where most shows carefully control what audiences can see and when they can see it. Gas Monkey Garage's willingness to let fans watch their operations in real time through internet live streams demonstrated their confidence that the actual work being done at the garage was interesting enough to hold viewer attention even without the dramatic editing and music that made the television episodes so compelling to watch.